Well, I have been out of the house twice in the last week because I have COVID, as you might hear from my voice. And, sometimes I just think like we get so far and then something, bam, stops us. 2 years. And I thought, we're finally out of the woods and we can get back to some sort of sense of normalcy, but no. And as my wife, my lovely wife, my smart wife reminded me, it's best to have it now than 2 years ago because I've been fully vaccinated. So I'm very grateful that I have COVID. But, I feel like I'm backtracking. I'm backsliding, which is a good reason to return to Pentecost, because Pentecost is the day where everything changes. And we go back to that. We need to go back to that all the time. I do anyway. I need to go back to it all the, it's not like a riding bike. I got to go back to it over and over and over and remember that I have a gift that is open to me anytime I want it. And I do not have to live in fear. I do not have to live in anger. I don't have to live feeling uncomfortable at all. I can live in joy if I want to. But I have to want to. And more than that, I have to be willing to do. So anyway, Pentecost then moves us into the Acts of the Apostles. And I was reading in Acts, and I came across this couple of verses that I just want to give to you because I thought they were pretty funny. So in Acts 16, Paul is about to meet Timothy, who will become a very close companion with him. Timothy becomes a sort of a mentee to Paul. And I remember hearing once that everybody needs a Paul and everybody needs a Timothy. You need to be blessing somebody, and you need to have someone that's blessing you. Anyway, so Acts 16, 4 and 5. Paul and his companions traveled from town to town, and they reported what the apostles and the elders in Jerusalem had decided. So this is before the Bible. What's happened is in Jerusalem, they've had this kind of tete-a-tete. Peter and Paul kind of trying to figure things out. And they've come to a conclusion, and so they have made a report, and they're giving the report out. Now, so the people were supposed, this is what the scripture says, the people were supposed to obey what was in the report. So the churches would be made strong in the faith. And the numbers grew every day. So apparently after the report was given, things got better, and the churches grew. And so we don't know what was really in the report, but we do have the letter to the Galatians. First of all, Galatians is a letter to a particular church or churches in the province of Galatia. And Galatia is in modern-day Turkey, but it's called Galatia for the Gauls, who were the Celts. That's odd. The people we usually think of as up in Britain and Ireland and that area. No, Gaul. Anyway, so apparently what happens is they hear the report, and the report is that you do not have to be circumcised in order to be a Christian. That was a big debate at first because it had to do with the law. And so there's this human law that seems to be constantly coming into contact with God's law. And Paul is on the side of God's law. So we don't know what's in the report, but we do know what's in Galatians. And what Galatians is a very angry letter. Yeah, it is really angry. If you don't believe me, go to Galatians 5:17. Go ahead, pause, I'll wait. So you know what I'm talking about. Paul is upset. And all of Paul's letters begin with a greeting. It's like, Dear John, but it's a little longer because it's a formal kind of letter. And he always starts by saying something like, grace and peace to you. I write to you, Paul, not as a man, but as a disciple of Christ. Grace and peace unto you. So there's the beginning. But the first words of the letter are, I am astonished. think of some some authority figure that you've known, a drill sergeant. I think of it like a drill sergeant who comes across a private with a gun stuck in his eye. He's saying, "I am astonished. You stop it." That's the kind of tone that's there. It's like you hear that voice. When you hear all three of your names, you know you better shut up right now. So that's how the letter starts. He says, "I am astonished that you have come so far from what we talked about before. I came to you, I gave you the report, I would go away, and this is what you do? Really? Okay, let's go over it one more time." So the thing about these letters I'm constantly reminded is that I think sometimes we think of the Bible as just a bunch of verses put together, like Proverbs, and there's a book that are a bunch of pithy sayings mostly. But that's not how the Bible is. You can't just take it verse by verse. You need to look at its entirety. The book of Galatians letter, it has a beginning, a middle, and an end. I'm only going to tell you about the end mainly, but he starts by saying, look, one more time, it's not about human law. It doesn't matter whether you're circumcised or not. Get circumcised if you want to. Don't if you don't. That isn't the point. Remember who you are and what you're about, and the law that you obey is God's law, and the God's law is the law of love, period. Love your neighbor, Paul says in Galatians, because you're not right now. And I think a lot about what Paul would write to the Americans. What letter would he write? And right now I think he'd be in the tone of Galatians, because we are not doing what we are supposed to do. We may be 100% right in what we think and going about it in 100% the wrong way. And Paul reins us in, and he says at the end of the letter, if you say or do things that harm one another, watch out. You'll end up destroying yourself. And I know there are times when I want to say loud things to people. You know, I think we're past the point where we're having conversations with each other. We are now arguing with each other, and we are saying things whose intention is to hurt one another. The subtext of what we're saying is, well, you're just stupid, which is not the way a Christian is supposed to conduct his or herself. Paul then goes to talk about sin. What is sin? It's a wrong action that includes results of hatred, fighting, strife, fits of anger. Sinful desire is interested, he says, verse 20, sinful desire is interested only in getting ahead. It stirs up trouble. I'm hearing a lot of trouble being stirred up. It separates people into their own little groups. It wants what others have. But the fruit of the Spirit, he says directly after that, the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, and peace. It is being patient, kind, and good. It is being faithful and gentle and having control of oneself. And that's the Pentecost that I need. That's the rebirth that I need. I need to remember to be kind. Remember to be gentle. And remember to be loving. God bless you all.